Thanks to my subscribers on Patreon for supporting this video.
A lot of people these days are talking about your ego.
One thing y'all not gonna do is play with James Cameron.
Moral of the story, do not mess with James Cameron.
In the filmmaking business, no one ever gives you anything.
You want to see a director who's hot? James Cameron is hot.
$2 billion. It replaced the second highest grossing film, that was Titanic.
So if you want to come play with Jim Cameron, you better do your best.
He's very clear on what he wants and what he doesn't want.
He knows everybody's job better than they do, and he's better at it than they are.
There's a certain tenacity that's required.
And I think sometimes he gets frustrated because of that.
He told the exec to get the F out of my office.
This is an additional opportunity for you to make $2 billion, so shut up.
That tenacity manifests itself in unpleasant ways.
Don't mess around with Jim.
So I punched him in the face as hard as I could.
Want to know everything you need to know about Jim Cameron's films? Go look at Terminator 1.
1981, Rome. James Cameron is battling a fever.
I was in Rome, I was broke, and I was sick. I had a fever of, 103.
When he was in post-production in Rome on Piranha 2, he called me one morning and said in a fever dream he had this vision.
Piranha 2.
I got hired to do this film called Piranha 2, and they fired me after 10 days.
I was broke and no prospects. I didn't think I'd ever get hired again.
My car had been repossessed. I was totally out of cash.
And so I thought, okay, I'm blacklisted. I was at less than zero.
I had a high fever, and I was just having these weird dreams, and I had a nightmare.
It was an image that I remembered when I woke up, an image of a kind of chrome skeleton emerging from a fire.
And when I woke up, I sketched this character, which became the Terminator.
It's here, it's alive, and it's multiplying.
After that experience, nobody would hire me and just put me on a film. I'd have to create my own thing, and that's why I wrote The Terminator.
The Oscar goes to James Cameron for Titanic.
1998, a movie about a sinking ship spawns some superstars, but
It was director James Cameron who was king of the world.
Titanic!
I'm the king of the world!
Titanic had become the biggest movie of all time. And it left Cameron wondering how on earth he could top it.
At the age of 19, I'd had a dream.
The very first seed of Avatar was a dream I had when I was in college.
About a bioluminescent forest with purple moss underfoot. When you stepped on it, it lit up, and a glowing river filled with bioluminescent animals, and even down to the little flying lizards that spin around. It was kind of all there. I was so inspired by the dream, I started sketching it in oil pastel, colored pencils, and so on. There was no story yet, so I painted that, and I kept it in the back of my mind. And years later, I was looking to tell a story that took place on another planet that I could develop at my newly founded visual effects facility called Digital Domain. And I incorporated that concept into a thing I called Avatar. So I wrote this piece called Avatar, which was meant to absolutely push the envelope of visual effects, of CG effects, beyond, with realistic human emotive characters generated in CG. And the envelope pushed back, and I was told by the folks at my company that we weren't going to be able to do this for a while.
You pushed me down the stairs.
We had to wait for technology to catch up to this script that he had written.
It turned out that it wasn't possible to do what I wanted to do. I was nowhere. Nobody was going to offer me anything. So I had to write something.
I just wrote a treatment, longhand, maybe 40 pages.
I had to attach myself to it firmly. It had to be good enough to get made. I thought, I'm going to have to create something that everybody wants to make, And in fact, the Terminator script was very well received and people wanted to buy it. I had many, many people trying to buy that script. I think the highest offer was $1 million from Paramount. $1 million, I couldn't even imagine. I couldn't even visualize what that looked like in a pile, you know. Couldn't even fathom it. But I wouldn't sell the script to them unless I went with it as the director. Of course, that was a turnoff for almost everybody. And we turned it down because they didn't want me to direct it. It was a film that I wanted to make. I needed a producer. I needed a producer that I could trust to protect it and to protect me in the mix.
In a desperate attempt to direct The Terminator, Cameron sold the script to producer Gale Ann Hurd for $1, under one condition.
We decided that we would collaborate on the film and bring it to the screen. We were turned down by every major studio.
But we did find one low-budget producer who was willing to make the film, and that was John Daly at Hemdale.
And Hemdale bought it, you know, to develop with us, and they promised me that I would be able to direct it. You know, we emerged still as a team, still holding the rights, and with a budget that was borderline makeable.
It's like, do you have a sense while you're writing, like, there's no way to do this yet, but I'm going to have to invent it?
I think so. I knew it was only a matter of time before it became mature enough as an art that we could begin the Avatar process. It started to look like the right timing was starting to converge in about 2005.
In 2005, Jim said, I think we're close enough where if we could push the technology and tell this story that we always wanted to tell.
So we started down a process which ultimately took about 2 years, a little over 2 years, of, in parallel, designing everything. Every creature, every plant, every tree, you know, the floating mountains, the whole 9 yards. And in parallel, designing our process for doing the performance capture.
We were trying to invent something which no one had ever seen before.
But despite Jim's track record, the studio execs at Fox still needed some encouragement.
Cameron was criticized early on for the film's budget, said to be nearly $500 million.
No, James.
What do you mean, no? I tell you to give me money and you give it to me. That's how this works.
James, you're already way over budget.
Please? I need these effects.
And in terms of the film's duration...
But Cameron still remembers an executive at the company begged the director to shorten it. He said he told him, I think this movie is going to make all the fucking money. And when it does, it's going to be too late for you to love the film.
At one point, Cameron drew a line in the sand, stating, you know what? I made Titanic. This building that we're meeting in right now, this new $500 million complex on your lot, Titanic paid for that. So I get to do this.
And I told him to get the fuck out of my office, and that's where it was left.
I think that you have to find some kind of inner strength that says, what I'm doing is right. On Terminator, when we had, all these problems.
Terminator was done on really quite a shoestring budget.
There wasn't that much time available and that much money available.
We knew we had to keep the costs down, but we were still being ambitious.
We were naive enough at that point not to realize it was an impossible dream.
I was of that ethos that if my hands weren't filthy by the end of the day, I wasn't directing a movie.
We shot downtown LA, the worst parts of LA.
Because I was helping move the lights.
At night, during the summer.
Helping move the camera.
It was hot, it was humid.
Helping set everything up.
Dirty, smelly.
Move the furniture around.
All those alleys and stuff, it was nasty.
That's just how I thought it was.
Before the first Terminator, I broke an ankle and tore ligaments.
She had to run throughout the movie on a broken ankle that had to be wrapped every day.
And we really had no idea if we had a film.
We were going out on our own, shooting a scene. You remember punching into the window?
We went out and stole shots.
And you say, quickly, before the police comes, walk across the street and just punch in the window. And then
it didn't occur to you to ask me, what do you mean punch in the window?
I know.
What do you mean punch in the glass window? Exactly. It's just like, do it.
The final scene of the movie where Sarah is driving down the highway.
We were setting up all day for the right light. Not one car had driven by. And just as we were about to roll,
a little dot of a car starts to show up. Jim says, wouldn't you know, it's probably a cop.
a cop car pulls up.
He didn't have a permit or anything.
Filmmaker James Cameron has a reputation for running over budget and out of time.
The Avatar shoot was a battle.
The idea was to take a motion capture stage and have a camera in it that the director could work with in real time.
We're using our motion capture system to track this position as though it were a camera view into that world.
Action. It's all real time, so Jim can frame his virtual camera up and see his character there on the fly.
Whether it was the crew's issues,
we realized very quickly that the editing was going to kill us.
Or the actors.
So much grain around that you can lose sight of what we're doing.
The pressures were beginning to suffocate.
Jim said to me, we're just making this stuff up as we go along.
Lay back and action.
4 years in production, the biggest ever budget.
Most expensive movie ever made with a budget of about $300 million.
I was having a really bad day down on the set in Wellington, New Zealand, and I was 2.5 years into the film, and it was just a meltdown. Everything was going wrong. We were going over budget, and we hadn't solved a bunch of technical problems. And I was just cranky with the whole crew, and I went home that night, and I woke up the next morning, and I thought, you know, I would say that my father was completely unsupportive in any way, shape, or form, and was really sort of just sharpening his knives, waiting for me to fail so that he could say, aha, I was right, you should have gone into engineering. There was zero support there, and I actually think that it made me angry enough that I had to succeed. Well, when you spend thousands of hours underwater, as I have, I started diving when I was 16, there are gonna be times when you get yourself in a scrape. And there have been a couple of times where it was, nip and tuck, whether I was gonna make it or not.
In 1988, Cameron was filming The Abyss, which is a project that he had tons of elaborate equipment built for so that he could shoot underwater. One day he was filming deep at the bottom of the tank, weighted with this 40-pound helmet and weights around his waist and ankles, and he ran out of oxygen.
And it was one breath and then nothing.
He ditched this very expensive, elaborate helmet at the bottom of the tank and started to make a free ascent to the surface.
So I'm getting, to the surface, and the safety diver gets to be about 10 feet from the surface.
The safety diver put a regulator on Cameron's face, and it was broken.
And it had been banging around on the bottom of the tank for 3 weeks and had a big rip through the center of the diaphragm.
So Cameron got a gush of water into his lungs instead of air.
And at that point, it was almost checkout time.
The safety diver thought Cameron was panicking when he reacted strangely, and so he clutched onto Cameron to hold him down.
And I had no way to tell him that his regulator wasn't working. So I punched him in the face as hard as I could.
The safety diver flew back. Cameron continued his ascent to the surface.
And therefore survived.
You learn to tune all that out and just say, wait till people see the film, and then we'll know if we're in trouble or if we're in good shape.
With his back against the wall, Jim Cameron always has an answer.
A little dot of a car starts to show up, and Jim says, wouldn't you know, it's probably a cop.
A cop car pulls up.
Even if it means lying to a cop about being a student.
A UCLA student film, and we just needed one shot, and then we would get out of there.
He left, and we shot it and went home.
And that was actually the last shot of the film.
I was having a really bad day down on the set in Wellington, New Zealand. I went home that night, and I woke up the next morning, and I thought, you did Titanic. You really didn't need to work again. If you did this to yourself again, there must be a reason. It's because you like it. So remember that you like it,
That's great.
The Terminator, rated R. The #1 movie in the USA is now playing everywhere.
It was impossible to anticipate that the film would get the kind of almost universal positive reviews that we got.
They cannot make things like that yet.
Terminator 1 was like a hallucination for me.
Jim and I realized that we had touched a nerve.
I was making my first picture. I had no idea it was really going to be a success.
And that the film would open up and maintain the same box office week in and week out for a number of weeks.
Not for about 40 years.
Well, things changed for me. You know, Terminator made the Time magazine 10 best movies of the year list.
I'll be back.
You want to see a director who's hot? James Cameron is hot.
And that's the payoff when I see people respond that way to a movie. That's the fun part. So everything after that was like a dream for me for a while. I'm like, are you kidding me? Did I just die or go to another dimension?
Are you saying it's from the future?
And then I realized, yes, it did happen. This really did find its audience, and it gave me a lot of courage as a filmmaker to go on and do other stuff.
James Cameron's new big blockbuster opus is out.
James Cameron, who clearly loves the color blue, may be seeing a lot of green in the near future.
So we're hoping we make some money with this so that then there's a second film.
Avatar has been out for 6 weeks in the U.S. and is still going strong at the box office.
Bums hit cinema seats like never before for James Cameron's Avatar.
Avatar is attracting a worldwide audience of both men and women, young and old.
The movie has resonated around the globe. It has become the highest-grossing film of all time.
Avatar, the world's highest-grossing movie of all time.
This film could do $2 billion worldwide, something unthinkable.
Box office numbers worldwide have surpassed $2 billion.
Avatar, another one everybody's talking about with the things and the James Cameron and
It replaced the second highest-grossing film, which James Cameron also made. That was Titanic.
It seems like, everybody seemed to, as usual, be lining up against you.
Sure.
It went from, we're not sure to, oh, it's the biggest movie ever.
The Terminator proved what a titanium will can accomplish. With Avatar, it explored an alien world where no one had ever gone before.
I think a lot of what is misunderstood about my particular filmmaking process is that I get people to go that extra mile that they've never done before, and they go into new territory. They go beyond what they previously thought were their limits.
So if you want to come play with Jim Cameron, you better be prepared to do your best.
Collaborating with Jim Cameron is actually an amazing experience.
I think the most exciting part was being pushed by someone who wants the best out of you.
Jim's great. He's a practical person.
He has the ability to keep an entire movie in his mind.
He's very clear on what he wants.
He wanted it his way. He wanted his vision up there.
Such a clear vision of what he wants to see.
He's not just throwing a baby director fit. It's because he knows how it should be. And I would say about 98% of the time, he's completely right.
Be a director. Pick up a camera, shoot something. Now you're a director. Well, I think it's good to have lofty goals. Never give up, because it's going to be unbelievably hard. I've always said to everybody, look, I'm going to set a goal here, and we're going to fail. We won't achieve that goal. It's going to be a ridiculously brutal uphill fight. We're going to fail to a level that's above everybody else's goals. And I've always approached life that way. And you just have to have tremendous stamina and self-confidence in the pursuit of excellence. You have to go all the way. It's that simple. When I started out, I was working as a truck driver, didn't have much spare cash, certainly couldn't afford film school. I wouldn't call myself a workaholic, but when I'm on the set, it's 100% focused. I think that certain things must just be genetic, because I look back at who I was at 10 years old or 9 years old. I was happy being a blue-collar guy. It gave me just room to imagine. But I lived in a world of my imagination. It was comic books, it was science fiction, it was movies. I'm the king of the world! And I'm the same person now. Cut.
try it again.